sense that actually represents the shift toward religion as a must now?
In my personal life?
In your personal appreciation of American life?
Well, I don't know. I mean, folks sometimes ask me, you were raised Catholic, which I was, and are you doing this because you're bitter? No, that is absolutely not true. I was not abused, and I'm a little insulted because I was a cute kid, and I don't know why they didn't find me attractive, and I think they should have. But no, and when people say it's going to be like a support group, people who haven't been abused, when they say you're prejudiced against religions, no, prejudice means you're prejudging. That's where we get the word. I'm not prejudging, I'm judging. Very different, and I'm allowed to judge. We all should be able to judge, especially moral values. I mean, that's what we're here for. So, to say, are you anti-Catholic? No, I am not anti-Catholic. I'm anti-children.
And no one's going to pick up that one.
And let me say also, I think in a larger picture that historically this modern era was ushered in, ironically, by a Democrat. I think Jimmy Carter, in the wake of Watergate, came along, and he was the first presidential candidate to actually use Jesus as part of his campaign, and being born again and wearing his religion on his sleeve. And he won the election and brought out all these voters, and the Republicans, in their ruthless machinations, recognized that there was a whole untapped audience there. And when he screwed everything up, the Republicans swooped in and grabbed those voters, and it kind of changed the dialogue, the political dialogue in the country. After that, you had the religious right, the moral majority, and all of that stuff started to sort of get traction in the United States, and it's continued to this point. Sure. In 1960, Kennedy made a speech about religion, and what he said was, my religion will have absolutely nothing to do with how I run this country. I don't take my orders from the Pope, separate, church and state. That was in keeping with the ideas of the Founding Fathers. Mitt Romney, who was a candidate we had this year for the Republican nomination, a Mormon, upset people, or at least raised eyebrows, because we never had a Mormon candidate. So he made a speech, which a lot of people compared to the Kennedy speech. But in truth, the content of the speech was nothing like the Kennedy speech. Because whereas Kennedy was saying religion has nothing to do with how I will run the government, Mitt Romney was assuring people that even though my religion is not your religion, it's also crazy. You believe in crazy, non-rational shit, so do I. So we really can relate on that level. We're all that, and we can kind of link arms on that. He said a very different message. He said, I'll never allow religion into my administration. I discussed this with my 3 wives, and we all agree. Sir?
And one from Bloomberg News, New York. Bill, at what age did you first start to have doubts about religion? And the other thing is, I've seen you variously describe yourself as an agnostic, an atheist, various labels. How would you describe yourself today?
I think people describe me that way. I always say I'm a rationalist. We don't like the term atheist because it's got a pejorative meaning at this point, and it's sort of it's too dogmatic. I think when people hear atheist, they think of someone who is saying, I know for sure that there is no God. What we're saying is, I don't know. I don't know what is out there. My guess is that it's not a personal God that has suspiciously human characteristics, that sounds like it was made up by primitive men at a time when they didn't know what a germ or atom was, or where the sun goes at night, or what made women pregnant. Like Sarah Palin now. But when people, sometimes they say, but Bill, how do you know? It could be Jesus. Yes, it could be. And it could be Furby, or it could be the lint in my navel. It could be anything. I don't know, and I don't really care, because I'll never know as long as I'm alive, and it just gives you a headache to think about it. So, rationalists. People who base their thinking on rational thought and scientific evidence. That's the key difference.
How young were you when you first started suspecting that this was like?
This was just last week. Yeah. Well, they drill it into your head when you're a small child. I mean, Catholicism, I can't remember a time when I was a kid when it wasn't in my head.
But as I've said before, they also used to drill mercury into my teeth when I had cavities. And when I got older, I had it drilled out of my mouth, and you can do the same thing with Catholicism. You could have it also drilled out of your head.
Drill, baby, drill.
Drill now.
Drill now.
Hi, Sandy Mandelberger, International Media from New York. I was curious whether you guys have gotten any sense whether your movie is, when it opens in October, is going to get a wave of preaching from the pulpit from all the different religions, basically saying, as has happened with some previous films, do not see this movie. If you see this movie, you're a blasphemer. Are you anticipating any kind of a campaign against seeing your movie from not just the Catholics, but just across the board, because you seem to be an equal opportunity offender?
We can only hope.
Yeah. But it's something that's sort of out of our control. Our job is to make the best possible movie we could and put it out there, and let's see what happens. And I'm confident that we'll get a strong reaction, but what kind of strong reaction is sort of out of our control. So we'll have to just see.
I mean, there's already a lot of talk about that on the web. If you look, you know, there's people writing, you know, don't see this movie, and Bill Maher is Satan.
Which is true.
I mean, they're right about that. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue there. But you know, whether it'll take take to the streets kind of thing, I don't know.
Right. Right. As long as it takes to the theaters, that's the.
I wonder that the alarms you raise in this movie seem much more pressing after the McCain-Palin ticket came up. Would you have made it differently today and perhaps directed it more that way?
We were just talking on the ride here. This is a subject for both of us that it's so rich, it's such a rich vein that we could probably make this movie for the rest of our lives. Every week there's going to be something that comes along and that's a great idea that would have been a great segment for the movie. So yeah, I mean, I think we both have looked at the Sarah Palin Republican National Convention as a tremendous opportunity. I think the election will be another one, and the post-election will be another one, and what happens in Pakistan and Afghanistan and the Middle East, all these things are constantly changing, and religion is at the heart of so much of it that we continue making this movie forever. And actually, I would love to. So.
No work of art is ever finished, only abandoned. You can all write that one down. You can, please, enjoy.
Sir, and then the gentleman here.
Oh.
Sir?
Michael Posner from the Globe and Mail.
That looked like church, getting up, getting down, getting up, getting down, then you kneel. It's sort of like a hokey pokey.
You've offended the three mainstream religions, but
Thank
you've
you.
kind of ignored a few billion people, the Buddhists and the Shinto and the,
Right.
and the Hindu. Is that a sequel, or no, did you make a decision at some point that...
People are already onto that.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely wanted to cover all that. There's certain realities. I mean, we're talking about a 90-minute movie. We're talking about a certain amount of money. We're talking about a certain amount of time. And ultimately, a decision was made that the heart of the story right now in the world, for us, is the clash of these different cultures. And so we decided to focus on this, knowing full well that we were not covering that and hoping that maybe at some point we could. Yeah.
And also, I think the American audience is not very familiar. We're not that even familiar, really, with the Eastern religions. You'd almost have to spend a whole movie educating people what it's all about before you could talk about them. But the one thing I do know about them is they do seem somewhat more peaceful, but they're also crazy. They're cuckoo, too. I mean, you know, it's not like they're not cuckoo, too. The Dalai Lama, you know, where they find that 2-year-old, he's the one.
Right.
You know, what is that all about? I mean, that could be a whole movie right there.
Right, that's it. Little Buddha. I think a little Buddha.
Do you think the reaction worldwide will be completely different depending on whether it's a Muslim country or a Christian country or a Jewish country?
I don't think it'll be